Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN-TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, on the Talkstar Radio Network, Radio X, TalkStream Live, and many affiliates right around this great big world of ours. If you'd like to send me an email, studio@xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And our main website, where you can find out what we've done in the past, what we're doing today, and what we intend on doing tomorrow at www.xzoneradiotv.com. Before we get to my guest, X-Zone Nation, I have a question for you. How would you like to be part of UFO history? No, I'm not kidding. Launching from the Mojave Desert in the summer of 2017 is the CubeSat project satellite called Disclosure. Now, if you'd like to find out how you can be part of history, UFO history, just go to www.cubesatfordisclosure.com. That's cubesatfordisclosure.com. My guest this hour is a gentleman we've had the pleasure of having on the show before. Dr. Bernard Beitman is his guest. He is the first psychiatrist since Carl Jung to attempt to systemize the study of coincidences. He is a visiting professor at the University of Virginia and former chair of the Department of Psychiatry at the University of Missouri, Columbia. He attended Yale Medical School and completed a psychiatric residency at Stanford. Dr. Beitman has received 2 national awards for his psychotherapy training program and is internationally known for his research into relationships between chest pain and panic disorder. In addition, he has edited 2 issues of Psychiatric Annals that focus on coincidences. Let me give you a very simple question, Dr. Beitman. And
Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you very much for coming back on the show, sir.
You're very welcome.
How do you define a coincidence?
A coincidence is the coming together of 2 lines of life, any form of life, coming together in a way that is surprising and suggest that there might be a causal relationship between the two of them, but it's not there. We don't know what it is.
Can you give me an example?
The most common coincidence, according to our weird coincidence survey, which your people in the audience can take by going to my website, coincider.com, coincider.com, and they can see how sensitive to coincidences they are. One of the most common coincidences is thinking of someone and having that person out of the blue call them. Now, we expect some people to call us, but these are people who we haven't heard from for a while and sometimes show up on the phone. Another example, which is probably more common than I realize, a friend of mine ran into another friend of mine, and they started having dinner together at one of our local restaurants here in Charlottesville. So John is listening to Amanda talk about her problems with student loans, and Amanda says, this student loan thing I did, it really was a stupid thing for me to have done. And as John is listening to her talk about it, his cell phone rings. It's a robocall. We hardly get robocalls on cell phones. And this robocall announced gleefully to John that his student loan had been forgiven. John doesn't have a student loan. So it came at a time when they were talking about student loans, and who knows how that happens. But I hear other stories like this, where there's a call and nobody expects it. I was sitting in my office the other day talking with a patient who's tuned into coincidences and tuned into interpersonal energy, which is another fun part of the coincidence studies. And she saw me go over to my desk and reach for my phone. I don't do that during sessions. I don't go for my phone, but I kind of had a sort of reason to do it. At that moment, I received a phone call, and it was from somebody I needed to hear from.
All right, and this is where you and I have to take a cliffhanger because we have to take a commercial break. Exonation, Dr. Bernie Beitman is our very special guest of this hour, and we'll be back on the other side talking about coincidences. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and we'll be back on the other side as we continue discussing the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology and all stops in between here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
This is Johanna Carroll, host of Dialogue with Divinity on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. While walking along Kaanapali Beach in Maui this past year, I kept discovering all these shells and coral in the shape of hearts. My dialogue with Divinity was very simple. Do you want me to do a retreat to heal people's hearts in Maui next year? And of course, the answer was yes. As a master spiritual teacher, I am offering you a neat retreat called Rise, May 8th through the 12th, 2017, and the chance of a lifetime to rest at a 5-star resort for 5 days and experience a spiritual renewal of your heart and soul. Kaanapali is one of the top 5 beaches in the world. This stunning resort has undergone a $40 million renovation. I walked the entire property, checked out the room choices on your behalf, and I must say it is stunning. Our conference room faces the ocean with sliding glass doors. Maui is known as Mother Maui because it is a soft, gentle, healing energy. In the embrace of Mother Maui, you will feel yourself rising from the limitations of an ordinary life to an extraordinary journey of peace, bliss, and harmony. A greater sense of clarity. Our Rise retreat ignites renewal in the sacred elements of air, water, earth, fire, and wind. There's plenty of free time to enjoy all that Maui has to offer. A small deposit is required now to reserve your space, as this retreat, it will sell out. For more details, please go to johannacarroll.com and register today. Aloha, and I'll see you in mystical Maui.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. Dr. Bernard Beitman, MD, is our very special guest. He is the author of Connecting with Coincidence, the new science for using synchronicity and serendipity in your life. His website is coincider.com. All right, Doctor, before we went to the commercial break, you were telling us about you were in your office with someone talking about coincidences, and you reached for your phone.
Yeah, and the point of this story is that I intuited a phone call. And this idea of intuition needs good expanding in conventional thinking. Because that, I think, like the phone calls you get when you think of somebody and they call, is another version of telepathy. Telepathy tends to be not considered a reality in conventional science. My own experiences and the data I've seen assure me that we are telepathic creatures. And we probably were telepathic creatures as what we might call primitive people when we didn't have our larynxes very well developed, but still needed the capacity to communicate with each other. We still have that capacity. And I'm suggesting to your listeners and to people who read my book, Connecting with Coincidence, that they have telepathic experiences also and just need to use coincidences to be able to pay attention and prove to themselves that they have that capacity. Remember, you shouldn't believe me. You shouldn't believe any expert. You need to be able to test it out yourself and use our knowledge and our experience to confirm and further elaborate on your own capacity. This weekend, I was in a forest near my house, about 20 minutes away, in the Blue Ridge Mountains, a beautiful place I go most weekends. And I started thinking about a woman who I'd seen the night before at services. I'm Jewish and was at Sabbath services, Shabbos services on the Friday night before this Saturday. And in the forest, I thought of her. I'd seen her. We didn't talk. And I was curious that she had entered into my mind so loudly, but then I forgot about it. And as I was descending the mountain along a pretty straight path, I ran into 4 people, and she was there with her husband, who I also knew. How did I have her face ringing in my mind, and then she shows up in the forest? No, she shows up there. She's been there several times when I've been there. They go there with some regularity. But we then start looking at probabilities. Probabilities are a way to judge the value of a coincidence. Coincidences that are high probability, the idea that you run into somebody at a coffee shop who's always there when you're there, that's a high probability event. But if you walk into a bar you haven't been in for, say, 5 years, and you see a person who was supposed to be in England and used to live in your town and shows up there just as you're there and you had been thinking about that person, that's a little more low probability and a higher quality coincidence. So the ability to know things about what's going on in our world and your world without knowing how we know, we label intuition. And I'm suggesting to you that telepathy is one way of describing picking up information in ways we don't usually expect that we do.
What is the physiology behind coincidence, or what have you doctors and scientists to this point been able to figure out about it?
Why do people experience coincidences? Because coincidences are a way in which to understand causal relationships between 2 events. A simple example is a baby crying. The baby cries, and the mother appears. The baby's crying because the baby is uncomfortable. But then the baby learns that the crying is associated with the mother appearing. So then the baby learns that if he or she cries, the mother will show up. So he learns to go from a coincidence, he cries, the mother shows up, to a causal relationship, which he then is able to expand. Scientists do this on a regular basis. We run into coincidences, especially in psychopharmacology. Perhaps the best known pharmacological experience of coincidences in psychopharmacology involved using a drug supposedly useful for blood pressure in a bunch of men whose blood pressure was high, placebo versus active drug. What they found was the blood pressure pill worked kind of well, but not that great to go marketing. But the men came back with smiles on their face because they could have erections and maintain them more easily. That was the beginning of Viagra, found by accident, serendipity, a coincidence that somebody observed in collective group, and there's a lot of money being made on that little blue pill.
So the example that you gave us earlier about you walking down the hill after thinking about this lady, and running into her, is it possible that your thoughts were transmitting some sort of signal? Because obviously, is it possible that she was thinking about you, you picked it up, thought about her, and bang, because you were in a certain proximity, you met?
That is a perfectly wonderful question. I didn't have the opportunity to think about, to ask her that question because some other people were coming along the trail, and I probably wouldn't have asked that anyway. It's a little bit presumptuous to ask that in front of her husband.
Exactly, yeah.
There are other people where I can ask that question. And a simple example of that is I have a very good friend with whom I am very close, and she is very close to me. And the connection is very intense, so that we have to be apart from each other just to recover from the closeness we feel. I introduced her to another friend of mine, and then hadn't heard from my friend, the main friend, for a couple of weeks. Out of the blue, I decided to text the the second friend, the one I'd introduced the first one to. And the second friend said, wow, you just text me while I was having lunch with your other friend. There I had confirmation that they were thinking about me because they were talking about me as part of their conversation. So I could have picked up from them the trigger to then text the second friend. So this feedback that you're referring to has to happen. We just need to be able to ask questions like this that you're talking about. Did you think about me around the same time that I was thinking about you?
What part of coincidence does extrasensory perception play? Let's get into the parapsychology part of this.
Oh, definitely. Telepathy is part of ESP, part of parapsychology. It's probably been the fundamental thing that parapsychologists starting in the late 1800s started to study. You're familiar with the Society for Psychical Research.
Certainly.
And these guys were coming up with pretty good evidence for a lot of weird stuff. And telepathy was fundamental. The way in which telepathy then gets expanded into questions of its relationship to clairvoyance, which is kind of like having a video cam in your head, or a webcam where you can just look at a different place and be here. People who do remote viewing, otherwise known as clairvoyance or clear seeing, clairvoyance, clear seeing, are seeing images in their minds of places at a distance. And people who do precognition are able to see in the future. Now, I'm going to leave precognition in a separate place because talking about time, which precognition invokes, is a complicated question. And time deserves a lot of attention. And precognition is one of those questions that makes us think more differently about time. But in clairvoyance and telepathy, the events are happening somewhat simultaneously. One of the most common experiences of telepathy, I now call simulpathity. The reason I call it simulpathity is that the original definition of telepathy was telos, T-E-L-E, meaning at a distance, and pathy, feeling. So it was feeling at a distance, but telepathy has come to be more cognition, more thought or visuals, not feeling. What I have found is that, and other people have reported, that we can experience the pain of a loved one at a distance. And this feeling of a loved one at a distance, which I call simulpathity, is much more common than we realize. And just like your question about knowing if the other person is experiencing or knows what you're experiencing.
Right.
I mean, somebody can have the feeling, and I could feel it, but I don't know that I'm feeling what they're feeling. So you got to check that out. Another part of parapsychology that has not been much addressed by parapsychologists is psi-mediated instrumental responses. Are you familiar with that term, Rob?
No.
No. I did. It's the guy who originated it, Rex Stanford, was president of the American Parapsychological Association, well recognized for his work, but nobody really picked it up. And the idea about PMIR is that we receive information, psi information, that directs our behavior through unconscious means. So we take a left instead of a right, and that turns out to be the best thing to do. For example, a guy is house hunting or thinking about house hunting with his wife. They just went to the bank to renew the loan on their current house, which they were going to buy, to get the loan on their current house, or they're going to buy, but she didn't like the house. So they took a way back they didn't usually take. He just felt like it. He turned left instead of right, and right as they were going by a house, a woman puts out a sign for sale, and his wife says, "Wow, let's go look at that house." And it turned out to be the perfect house for them. That's psi-mediated instrumental response. The woman putting out the sign put out a radio beam of a kind, and the man picked it up, and he took the left instead of the right and ended up just where he wanted to be.
Does this also work when people love at first sight?
Robbo. Now you are talking to Dr. Coincidence and the love stories.
All right, Dr. Coincidence and the love stories. We have to take a break here. It's always great talking to you, Dr. B. Exonation, Dr. Bernard Beitman is our special guest this hour. His website is coincider.com, and he is the author of a fascinating book, Exonation. In fact, this would be a great Christmas gift for anyone out there. The name of the book is Connecting with Coincidence, the new science for using synchronicity and serendipity in your life. And I'll be back on the other side with a good doctor as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, talking about coincidences. Don't go away. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone broadcast network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Dr. Bernard Beitman is our special guest of this hour, X-Zone Nation. He is also known as the Coincidence Guy. He is the author of a very interesting book, because I don't know of anyone who's not interested in coincidences. The name of the book is Connecting with Coincidence, the new science for using synchronicity and serendipity in your life, and his website is coincider.com. All right, let's talk about love and the love coincidence.
Yeah, let's talk about love, baby. Let's talk about love. Before we talk about love, connecting the dots on connecting with coincidence in love, your listeners need to know that this book shows how coincidences take place in all aspects of life, not just love. In family relationships, in medical questions, in friend relationships, in the development and encouragement of ideas, in work, and in job problems, as well as in helping us develop spirituality. Coincidences are interesting because they happen to each of us in all parts of our lives. And my job on this planet right now is to sensitize people to their coincidences, because coincidences alert us to the mysterious hiding in plain sight. We get to see stuff that we don't usually think about seeing. And in one place, that is definitely with love, Rob. We love talking about love. And talking about love, we're going to talk about the sad side of coincidental love. And the sad side of that has to do with what I call false promise coincidences. A lot of people tend to think of coincidences as always all good. They aren't. And I have plenty of examples in my book where there can be problems. They can be problematic. A lot of them are very helpful, but it takes you to decide how helpful they can be. If you overly believe that all coincidences are there to guide you, you can run yourself into a bit of trouble. And these false promise coincidences are one of my favorite examples of where coincidences can take us astray if we don't pay attention to our decisions and other elements in that decision making. A non-romance one is a simple one of a prominent journalist that I know. Had applied for a job. He was on a flight, and on this flight, he discovered that he was sitting next to the boss of the person with whom he'd been talking about the job. What a coincidence. That airplane thing, sitting down next to somebody. There's some really cool stuff that happens on airplanes and when people get started talking. And that great conversation to him meant he would get the job. False promise. He didn't. Romance can probably breed the most false promise coincidences, especially for those people who over-rely on coincidences, believing that they are firm signposts rather than guideposts on the path they should take. The excitement of a new romantic interest can be greatly boosted by surprising coincidences because they seem to signal a profound bond, and sometimes they do. But people usually interpret the multiple coincidences as a sign that this relationship was meant to be. Stanislav Grof, a psychiatric colleague, in his book called When the Impossible Happens, wrote about a coincidence, a coincidence-filled romance that burned brightly in his life but quickly faded. He met a friend of a friend named Joan, and he was told he was told to contact Joan and thought about it but didn't give her a call. But then he went to a psychiatric meeting in Dallas and he ran into her. How he recognized her was from some pictures he had seen, but here they were, not having communicated directly and having run into each other at a conference. They're both psychiatrists, they're both likely to go to conferences, so that probability was increased, but it was still surprising for both of them. Another series of coincidences pulled the relationship towards marriage. They had a wonderful wedding with repeated rainbow themes all over the place, including the sky and people bringing in spontaneous rainbows without being asked. And for Groff, it meant this relationship was meant to be. Then there's the hangover, the day after the wedding. He felt something was terribly wrong. The thrill and ecstatic feeling were all gone. He felt sober and somber, and his intuition had kicked in. The illusions fostered by the coincidences had deceived him from what he had now done, which was make a serious error. They soon divorced. Another woman named Lynn Corrigan wrote on my Facebook page about a guy she'd known since childhood. They'd met as adults in a way that was full of coincidences and long shots, and yet what she wrote to me was, I need this person out of my life. I wish we never met. I'm wondering why the heck he was put in my path.
Oh, boy.
Here are examples on the negative side. On the positive side, there are many stories of people having multiple coincidences involving each of their lives and having them happen together. And for some of these relationships, it does feel like they're meant to be because there is love there. There is more than just coincidences bringing them together. They decide to be together, and they have a beautiful time together because the coincidences and other factors, similarities and taste and family connections, all made it work well for them, the feeling being prominent. One of the problems with having a lot of coincidence-based relationships is that they are all cognitive. You have to bring the heart in. The coincidences are only part of the whole picture. Well, one person I spoke with at my class at University of Virginia, I do a class on coincidence studies at University of Virginia, and she told me that she had had a coincidence-filled love that was beautiful. So I said, what happened? She said, we were married 15 years, and then we ended. And I asked her, did they talk about their relationship? Any relationship that's going to survive well requires work, and the work is the two people sitting down together and talk about problems. One of the old saws, one of the realistic statements about getting involved with somebody, particularly marriage, is you will always be disappointed because your expectations of that other person can't match what that other person is going to be. So you have to keep modifying expectations with each other and embrace the differences because that's where each of you grow. These two people did not talk together and they drifted apart. They probably could have stayed together with the coincidences and the love they had at the beginning, but it didn't work. On the other hand, there are these lovely, lovely stories of people somehow having the idea of going to a particular spot on a beach. This one comes from one direction, the other one comes on his motorcycle from the other direction. There's nobody else on the beach. Somehow they're drawn to each other and they stay together and they work on it, and it's a beautiful relationship, and they happen, and those are wonderful experiences for everybody.
But I think you said something very important in your last sentence. They worked at it.
Yes. They worked at it. The coincidences offer, they don't decide.
Right. And I think in today's society, everybody expects everything to last for a bit of time, and nobody really wants to put any work into relationships. It's too bad that we're turning into a disposable society.
That's well said.
Yeah.
That's well said. And a corollary of that, Rob, is that the relationship may be meant to be, but not forever.
Yeah.
That we do come together in relationships all the time that don't always last. Think of high school, think of college, think of the last job you had. Very close relationships, but most often we don't stick together. We don't, for various reasons. So what I like to think about in relationships, and just like you're meeting me and my meeting you, I hope that if we go ahead with what we're talking about, what we're doing, that we learn from each other, that I'm in your life to be of some assistance to you, and you're in my life to be of some assistance to me.
That's something else people forget, Doctor, is that life is a learning experience. We start to learn the moment we're conceived. Mind you, the moment we're conceived is the moment we start to die, but let's not go that far. And if you look, so many people look at starting something and then they have they have an upset and they say, oh, geez, I can't do it. I failed. Instead of looking at things as a failure, look at it as a lesson towards success or a lesson in life. Why do you think that so many people have a negative connotation to whatever happens to them? Instead of looking for the half-full glass, they look at the half-empty glass.
A simple answer is they haven't been taught what you just said. Another answer is it's so much more in the basic human brain to think of the negative than to think of the positive. We're programmed to survive, and that means you have to be a little paranoid. You have to be a little on edge. You have to be a little careful. But we have evolved to what you are now describing is to be able to see the positive in any situation. Today, I had 2 young men come in to talk with me as patients, both of whom each of whom told me medical-like stories that I couldn't understand. Now, I'm not a regular medical doctor, but I am a physician, and I've done internal medicine, and I've learned a lot of physiology in the body, not just the brain. But these guys weren't making sense. The stories they told were confusing, and I found that a very interesting and funny coincidence for me. And it gave me the opportunity to see what I could learn from it, what I learned from both of those guys, particularly then when I heard it a second time, is patience. To be able to be kind with them when they're not telling me the story as best they can in a limited amount of time we have, and just be gracious, open, understanding, and as helpful as I can given what they've told me.
That's a good lesson for all to learn.
It's for all of us. I like to call this place Earth University, Rob. We're all here to learn.
I agree with you, sir. I agree with you. Exxon Nation, Dr. Bernard Beitman is our special guest. He is an MD. He is the author of a very interesting book. The book is entitled Connecting with Coincidence, The New Science for Using Synchronicity and Serendipity in Your Life. His website is www.coincider.com. And the good doctor and I will return on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget, you can find out who else is on the X Zone Broadcast Network by going to our network website at www.xzbn.net. Programming 24/7, 365. And we'll be back continuing and wrapping up this hour talking about coincidences from our broadcast center here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
As host of Dialogue with Divinity, I am thrilled to join the X Zone Broadcast Network and their growing number of affiliates. My quest for a connection to the divine ignited my successful career path as an international spiritual counselor for over 40 years, and author of 4 books, and well-known metaphysical educator. My clients call me their spiritual mama. So my job is to offer you a radio show to help you grow spiritually with wisdom and get specific tools from guests who are experts in their field. Tune in to Dialogue with Divinity and be part of the conversation with Spirit. My goal, your happy soul. For more information, please visit my website at johannacarroll.com.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randall, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who would like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com.
Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold.
Welcome back, everyone. Speaking about synchronicity, didn't we play that one before, Craig? Or is that a coincidence? No, that was a flubber, wasn't it, buddy? There you go. Let's call it what it is. Dr. Bernard Beitman is our special guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, and Dr. Beitman is the author of a very interesting book that I strongly suggest for people to buy for Christmas if you've got that person in your life who is really interested in the strange, the weird, bizarre. I'm not saying that this book is strange, weird, or bizarre, but it does explain a lot of things. And it's called Connecting with Coincidence, the new science for using synchronicity and serendipity in your life. And Dr. Beitman's website is coincider.com. Listen, I'd like to go back in time a little bit, Doctor. Talk to you more about PMIR.
Sure. I got before I get that, I got a kick out of your trying to say whether my book was weird or not. And that you get tongue-tied because it's both.
Yeah.
It's both weird and not. I try to bring a medical scientific understanding to meaningful coincidences, which have tended to be kind of in a woo-woo area and still deserve some mystical or universe or even God kind of discussion, because some of them are really hard to understand how they happen. But we can understand how some of them happen. But even more importantly, we can categorize them. And we can categorize them in several ways. And one of them is to categorize by explanation. And one of my favorite explanations is what had been called PMIR, psi-mediated instrumental responses, coined by Rex Stanford. What I call them now are human GPS, human geospatial positioning system capacity, which means that we have the ability to find our way to people, places, and things that we need, but we don't know how we got there. Much like earlier I suggested that a guy took a left instead of a right and found the house that was right for his wife and for him. We have that capacity to read our environment, and like those mysterious satellite-driven GPS machines in our cars, we can get someplace without somebody in the back seat telling us how we got there, but it's 3 satellites guiding us and talking to us, and we have some of the same capacity, remarkably enough. And how do I know that? Well, I know it from having had a dog that I really loved named Snapper. And Snapper, when I was about 8 or 9, just wasn't home when I got back from school. I rode my bike into the yard and said, "Hey, Mom, where's Snapper?" And she looked around a little nervous and said, "Oh, go to the police station. Maybe they know where he is." So the good boy that I was, I dutifully got onto my bicycle, rode past my elementary school and crossed the big road next to my elementary school and parked my bike at the bottom of some stairs and climbed up the stairs and got to the big desk where the big man was sitting behind the desk, and I said, "Have you seen my dog?" He said, "Sorry, son. We haven't seen your dog." My eyes filled with tears. I was crying. I stumbled down the stairs and got on my bike and started riding down the sidewalk. And that wasn't the way I'd come. I'd never gone the way I was going. I didn't know where I was going. I was too many tears in my eyes. The idea of my dog being gone from me still makes my heart ache. I looked up, and coming towards me was a black dog who had a sideways walk that was just like Snapper's. He came up to me and jumped on my legs and looked up at me as if to say, "Where were you?" Now, I took one wrong turn to find Snapper. I looked at a map years later, and he had to make 4 turns to show up where I was.
Wow.
He did the better GPSing than I did. He somehow had figured it out and knew where I was. At least that it was my explanation. Since then, I've been able to find many stories just like this, where people find their ways to places where there is something that they need, or a person they need to talk with. The person they need to talk with could be for a job, for an educational experience. Stories of being in a busy airport and one person looking to meet a future boss, wanted to get in hold of her but never could get a response from her, recognized her in the airport, LaGuardia to be specific, and said,
cow.
"I want to talk to you." And the surprise let the woman boss talk with this younger woman, and the young woman got the job as a result of being in the right place at the right time.
You know, my mother used to have a saying, 2 stones never meet, 2 people always greet.
Very nice.
And I'm wondering if that was her way of trying to explain coincidences.
It might well have been. These two stones can't talk, they can't move, but two people can.
Yeah.
And they can find each other. People can find each other in this remarkably confusing and crazy world that you and I are trying to make more sense of and help our listeners make more sense of.
Let me ask you a question, Doctor. You're an eminent scientist.
Thank you.
And you're highly respected. You're an award-winning scientist. How come there are not more scientists like you doing the investigations into the paranormal like you're doing, sir?
Oh, there are many scientists doing investigations into the paranormal. They just don't reach mainstream attention.
Why?
I am collaborating here with, in Charlottesville, Virginia, a group called Division of Perceptual Studies. In this place, which is part of the University of Virginia, they study reincarnation, near-death experiences, and currently they're interested in psychokinesis and doing experiments in psychokinesis. They look at poltergeists. They look at connections to people from the beyond, people who are able to make those connections and talk about people who are not in this planet. This is the only place in the United States that is dedicated to the study of the paranormal.
And what is the name of the organization again?
The Division of Perceptual Studies. Are you familiar with the Institute for Noetic Sciences in California?
Oh, definitely.
There is some link between the two. A lot of people know each. Are you familiar with Joe McConnell, the remote viewer?
Yes, I am.
He lives 20 minutes from here, 25 minutes from here.
Well, the next time you see Joe, say hi to him for me, because he's been on the show a number of times.
Okay. Well, Joe doesn't show up much anymore, but he's been at some of our meetings. This is a unique place, and they are gingerly going out into the world to talk about what they do. And the world is far more ready to hear about what they're doing than they were when the division started about 30 years ago.
I'm sure. I've seen a lot of changes doing this show over the past 25 years. How when I first started, the paranormal was closet talk.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's mainstream. More and more people are coming to try to understand the paranormal than at any other time in history.
During times of upheaval, which we are certainly entering into even further, the paranormal, parapsychological ideas become more and more interesting and more valuable to people, trying to find a better way of looking at the confusion that is currently happening and is likely to continue.
I would imagine also trying to understand if there's any reason or rhyme to the confusion that we're all being subjected to.
We like to look for the reasons.
Yep.
And I am a big reason looker too. I think the turbulence is helping us enter into a new level of consciousness for our planet Earth.
So where does coincidence fall into the big scheme of things? I'm sure there are people out there who believe in predestiny, that everything that happens in life is destiny. So how does a coincidence fit in with those who believe in destiny?
The two favorite explanations for coincidences are probability and God, universe, fate. Both sides say there are no coincidences, and if anyone wants to follow up on this, I have a blog on Psychology Today's website, and one of the blog posts is, quote, "There are no coincidences." And in that post, I'm trying to suggest that both the people who believe in fate and God and those who believe in probability are missing an important element in explaining coincidences. It's me, it's us, it's you. We have a lot to do with creating our own coincidences. And I'm a psychiatrist, I'm a psychotherapist. I like to look for personal responsibility in anything that a person is involved with. I'm glad to see what they can't do anything about or haven't done anything about. But then I look for what they don't know they've done to help a certain situation come around. And that gives them more responsibility and helps them become more themselves.
Hey,
so
Dr.
my
B.
response is look for yourself first.
As always, time goes by so fast when you're with us. I want to thank you so much for joining us again tonight, Dr. Beitman. It's been a great pleasure talking to you, sir. Please keep the great work up. We need you out there. And X-Zone Nation, if you'd like to find out more about Dr. Beitman, visit his website, coincider.com, and the name of his book, Connecting with Coincidence, the new science for using synchronicity and serendipity in your life. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.